Yeah. So, decimals. What's involved in decimals? First of all, putting decimals in order. Easy. Adding decimals, subtracting decimals. It's just like adding and subtracting normal numbers, as you saw on there. Multiplying decimals and dividing decimals are a little bit more tricky. Show you something how we can do that quite straightforward. Dividing decimals, okay, that plays with your mind a little bit at some point. And then equivalencies, we might not get round to doing that today, but that's okay. I'm not so bothered about that. So let's look at decimals and see where we're up to. So, let's see what you already know. 7 volumes of the Transome Encyclopedia are on a shelf as shown here. Billy, the bookworm, begins by eating through the front cover of the first volume and eats his way through the front cover of the first volume and eats his way through to and including the back cover of volume 7. Calculate the length of his meal. The front covers are 4.4 millimetres thick, the pages 74.8 millimetres thick, and the back cover is 4.4 millimetres thick. See if you can add it up. How long's the meal? Without your calculator. It's up to you whether you decide to add or multiply. I add.
I'm confused.
So
do we have to do 4.4 times by 7? Or,
well,
and then
it's up to you.
4.8 times by
What
7?
you could do is this. You could do 4.4 plus 74.8 plus 4.4 plus 4.4 plus 74.8 plus 4.4, so you get all 7.
Yeah.
Or you could add that one all together, times it by 7.
Ah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's up to you which way you do it. Remember, there's more than one way of doing this in maths.
I'm confused as well. I don't know where to begin.
So Billy the bookworm, he's starting here, and he's going to eat his way through that booklet. And then he's going to eat through that one. And he's going to eat through that one. And he's going to eat through that one until he gets to here. So basically, how long is it from there to there? So if you look at it's got a front cover and a back cover, which are both 4.4 millimetres thick, and it's got all the pages, which are 74.8 millimetres thick. So that book in total is those 3 added together. And there are 7 books. Yeah?
It's a horribly worded question.
It is an horribly worded question. I don't even know what the answer is myself, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to quickly check. I've got an answer on here, but I'm not sure it's right.
I had a chap that woke up there running last week.
Times by that equals. Got an answer. You got an answer. 83.6 times by 7. Yeah, the decimal's good.
It's
The
throwing,
decimal's
isn't it?
throwing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Yeah. That's the tricky bit, isn't it? It's these. These little decimal points. They're a nuisance. They're a nuisance. Without the decimal points, that would be an easy sum. But with the decimal points, it's a tricky sum. Yeah, we've added those together. That's come up easy. That's easy peasy, no problem at all. But then it comes to the multiplication, multiplying it by 7, because that's the quickest way to do it. Rather than writing that 7 times, that 7 times, that 7 times, it's the easy way to do it. It's the multiplication. But it's multiplying them decimals. That's the problem. The actual answer is 585.2 millimetres. Did you get that, Lima?
Yeah.
Excellent. That's the actual answer. So, what we're going to learn to do is multiply some decimals. Okay? We're also going to learn to divide some decimals at some point. So first of all, let's have a look. What are decimals and what's the point? See what I've done there? That's a decimal number. Okay, we know this. This is the decimal point in the middle. These are your units, your tens, or they're called ones nowadays, sorry, your tens and your ones, and these are your decimal numbers. So anything to the right-hand side of the decimal point are called decimal numbers or decimal places. Okay, decimal places. This is your first decimal place, that's your second decimal place, that's your third decimal place, 4, 5, 6, etc., etc. And these are your whole numbers, okay? And that's your decimal point. Just be very careful when you're using a calculator of not getting that mixed up with a comma. I've had many a time when people have been working out some sums, and especially if they're big numbers, and they've got an answer like this in the answer box, and they've thought, oh, that's the answer, oh, decimal point there, and they've written in the answer box for the exam, which is totally the wrong answer. All that comma is doing there is just showing you that that's your thousands, there's your hundreds. Yeah? So just make sure when you're using a calculator, if you see a comma, that's all it is, it's a comma. Your decimal point would be there, okay? Just learn to recognise that. It's a dead simple mistake people make. Really simple mistake people make. So just be aware of that. That comma isn't a decimal point. So, there they are, okay? These numbers are less than 1. Okay, they're below 1. They're not a whole number. They're less than 1. So, the further away from the whole number they are, the smaller the decimal is. So for example, 0.2 is a lot smaller than 0.8, okay? And then it obviously goes to 1, 1.2, 1.3, etc, etc. So we're okay with that, aren't we, with the decimals? We're alright with that, yeah? We know they work. So obviously 2.1 is a lot smaller than 2.8, okay? And it doesn't matter how many numbers you have after a decimal point. So the first thing we need to understand is ordering them, putting them in order from large to small, okay, which are bigger than any other numbers, than decimal numbers. So we've got some numbers here. We've got 1.506, 1.56 and 0.8. And we've got to put them in the ascending order. So we're going to need to start with the smallest one. Well, the first thing we need to recognise is the first number, the number that's to the left of the decimal point, the whole number. In that case, that's a 1, which means it's a full 1. That's a 1, which means it's a full 1. And that's a 0, which means it's not even a full 1, it's less. If we go back a slide, it's not even a full 1. So we know that that's the smallest number straight away. We can tell that that's the smallest number. 0.8 would be the smallest number. But then we're left with these two numbers here, 1.506 and 1.56. And again, maths, it's numbers. Plays tricks with your eyes. If you look at those two numbers, that's the bigger number, because it's 506, 506. That's only 56. But the numbers aren't balanced. There's 3 decimal places here. There are only 2 decimal places there. So we need to balance this number. We need to give it an extra decimal place. So what do? And I can do this using the power of my whiteboard. We put a 0 there. So now we've got 3 decimal places, 3 decimal places. So now we can see that this number is actually bigger than this number. So the next smallest one will be that. And then the biggest number would be that. If that makes sense. Balance them up with a 0. Okay, don't put any number in, just a 0. Alright, here we go then. Put the following decimals in descending order. So you're going to start with the biggest. Which is the biggest number?
1.2.
1.2. Alright, the next biggest number.
0.85.
0.85, because that's nearly 1 actually, isn't it? There it is, yeah. Add another 0.15 to that and you've got 1.0. Next.
0.42.
Oh, looking good. Yes, next one.
0.40.
That's it. And then finally, 375. And you can see these are away from 1.0. The idea of decimals, like this 0.85, if you add 15 to that, or 0.15 to it, it becomes 1.0. Yeah, becomes a 1.0. Yeah, they're quite easy to do. They're quite easy to do, aren't they? No problems with those at all. Be great to have an exam paper full of them, but unfortunately you're not going to get that. Okay? But we just need to know. We need to know. So let's think about decimal places, because this is important in the exam. So I'll do it on this board. I've got this as a reminder, but I'll do it on this board because it's a bit easier, can draw stuff on it, you see. So we've just done a sum in our maths exam, and that's the answer we've got. We've got 2.71824. And the question says, I want you to give that answer correct to 3 decimal places. 3 decimal places. So what they're looking for there, they're looking for the whole number, which is 2, the decimal point, and then 3 numbers. Not 5 numbers like they've got there, but only 3 numbers. So what do we do? If they want you to give the answer to 3 decimal places, you have to look at the 4th decimal place, which in this instance is a 2. Okay? If it's between 0 and 4, you leave it as it is. Okay? You leave the 3rd number exactly as it is. Okay? So it would stay as 2.718. If that number was more than 4, let's say it was 2.71864, then you look at, again, go into 3 decimal places, we look at the 4th number. This time it's a 6. If it's between 5 and 9, then you increase the 3rd decimal place by 1. So the answer would become 2.719. Takes a bit of getting your head around this, to be perfectly honest. So however many decimal places you're asked to give your answer to, always go one past it, look if it's either of them, and then change the one that you're looking for, either up or leave it or move it up 1. Okay? Does it make sense? Does that make sense? Off you go then. Let's have a go at it. 34.876 correct to 1 decimal. Shall we do one at a time? Or do you want to do all 4? Let's do one at a time. So 34.876 correct to 1 decimal place. What's that going to be? I'll get an answer and I'll ask you in a minute. But I'll just have a short slip. We all got an answer for that one? Have we got 34.9? So have I. Let's do the next one. 1.23490 correct to 3 decimal places. All got an answer?
Yeah.
Come on then.
1.234.
0.235. Easy. 45.61 correct to 1 decimal place.
45.6.
Without even asking. 56.702, correct to 2 decimal places.
56.70.
Yeah, 52.6.
Yeah.
Good. So perfect. We've got it, haven't we? Yeah, fairly straightforward, nice and simple to do. Just remember, go one back and then bring it back again, that kind of stuff. Okay. So far, so good. So a lot of the time, or one of the skills that we need to learn with decimals, and again this is kind of links back to what we've already looked at with the numbers, is being able to multiply or divide by 10 and 100. Okay, by 10 and 100. So let me put a number on the board here. So there's a number. I've got 123.456 on the board. Okay. When we're multiplying and dividing with decimals, this thing here, it's a bit of a nuisance. It's a decimal point. It's a nuisance. We need to get it out of the way. We need to be able to move it. And you can do that by multiplying and dividing by 100, depending on what you're going to be doing. So if you multiply that by 100, by 10, sorry, basically you take the decimal point and you move it one place to the right. So 123.456 becomes 1234.56. If you were to times it by 100, you'd move it 2 decimal places. So then it would become 12345.6. Straightforward stuff, yeah? Same happens the other way, but it's a division, obviously. So 123.456 divided by 10 comes 12.3456. If you divide it by 100, it becomes 1.23456. So you're just moving the decimal point backwards and forwards. It's a skill we need. It's a skill we need to learn, because we're going to use it when we start to talk about dividing with decimals. Okay? So we need to, I'm going to leave that on because we need to remember that. It's straightforward, but we just do need to remember it. Okay? Now I'm not going to labour too much on adding and subtracting decimals, because adding and subtracting decimals is just like adding and subtracting any normal number, to be perfectly honest. 45.621 plus 7.93. Let's say that for an example. That's easy to do as long as you make sure everything's lined up. And remember what you can do with decimals. So let's just put some lines down to make sure we're all in our correct columns. Yeah? Oh, that doesn't look right. Got a gap. Yeah, of course they have. Put a 0 in there. It doesn't make any difference. And you just add it up as normal. Key thing to remember here is making sure that the decimal points are in line. Okay? Adding and subtracting, it's the same. Okay, it's just the same as we've learnt to do adding and subtracting in the other session. Really, really straightforward. Okay? Everybody okay with that? Not one of my favourite topics, decimals, to be honest. I find them a bit boring, but we need to know how to do them. So, yeah, adding up is just nice and straightforward, and subtracting is nice and straightforward. Let's have a go at a couple of these. I'll tell you what we'll do. We will just do the top one and the third one. 1 and 3. We'll not do them all, because I think if you can do them two, you'll be right. So just do the top one, which is an addition, and just do the third one, which is a subtraction. And let's see if we can it's just a bit of practice. Just a bit of practice. I think you'll be fine with them. Just make sure you get your decimals lined up. That's all you got your decimal points lined up. That's all you got to remember when you're adding and subtracting. How are we doing with that first one? We're doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah? Shelley, you okay with that first one?
Yeah, it's all good again.
So make sure your decimal points are lined up. If you need to, put a 0 where you need to put a 0. Remember, the 0 doesn't mean anything. Well, it means 0, but it's not going to change, it's not going to alter the sum. You've done those two, Glynis, yeah?
Yeah,
Confident?
think so.
Good. That's what we like to hear. Halima, how are you doing, yeah?
Yeah.
Michael?
think so.
Think so? Good. We've got this skill, we've learned this skill, we've got it, we've no need to panic about this, we've sussed it. Yeah, we can do it. This is easy for us. Right, shall we have an answer? What about the first one then? Number one, this one. 546.89 plus 32.479. Have we got 489.369?
Yeah.
It's alright. So we're good to go. I'm going to give you a second answer now, only because it's the way that this thing's been set up. You are going to get the second answer. Ignore it if you want and practice it at a later date, or take a note of the answer and practice and check your answer after. What about the third one then? So we had 123.756 minus 54.80. 68.956. Shelley, did you get that?
I will have done.
Oh,
but-
sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh, you got it.
I'm struggling to write it down as it is. That's what I'm trying
Oh,
to
right.
write it down.
Right, sorry,
so that
sorry.
it lines.
Right, yeah. If you struggle, get some of that squared paper there and put them in squares. Yeah, make sure that when you're writing. So this one, for example. So you've got one. What's it minus in 54? Make sure that's lined up. And we can always put a 0 there, you know, it couldn't mean anything. And then if you've got your lined paper, or your squared paper, the key, the important bit is this bit here. Is making sure that those two are lined up.
So just write the first one down for me then. The first one that we did.
546, so that would be, I'll use this squared paper here. Point, yeah. 8, 9. Why is that not writing? Must be a bit damp. 32. Points are lined up, you see. 4, 7, 9, and then there's nothing there. Yeah?
That's fine.
So just make sure that that's the important bit. The key bit is making sure that those two decimal points are lined up. What you don't want is one of them. Yeah? You don't want them out of line. They must be in line. Yeah? That's the key. That's the key to adding and subtracting. Apart from that, it's just like a normal addition and subtraction sum. Okay? So far, so good. Put that cloth on somewhere. So, let's clean that off. And we're going to move on to multiplying, then. multiplying and dividing decimals isn't brilliant. It's not too difficult, but it's one of them things where if you got one as a question, like we had with the Billy Bookworm earlier on, and you think to yourself, ooh, decimal point, how am I gonna times it? And these come up in the exam when they're talking about what they like to do in the exam. They like to give you questions where they're talking about pence. Okay. So for example, somebody's paying for their electric, and it's 0.09 pence per kilo unit or whatever, and they use 5,600 units. So then you've got 5,600 multiplied by 0.09 or 0.07. Flip, how are you going to work that out? Yeah, how are you going to work that out? That's a tricky question. So we need to learn how to do that. And it's a bit easier than you think.
It'll give you more
It's a
insight.
bit easier than you think. And again, this is a bit of information. I'm going to demonstrate it on here. It's so much easier for me to demonstrate it on here for you. So we've got this particular number. If you were faced with that in the exam, what would you do? You'd turn over the next page. You would. Yeah, you would. Because you'd look at the score and that'd say 1 mark. But well, no, it's dead easy. I'll show you how to do this. It's really straightforward to do. There's a couple of ways you can do it. So the first thing I do when I see that particular sum, I take a look at the sum as a whole. And I say to myself, yeah, I've got 0.03 times 1.1. Makes no sense that at all. Don't even want to try the lattice method. Don't want to do any method, to be honest. So what I do, I look at the sum. And I split it into these two separate halves. And I look at two separate numbers. And I look at this number. And I see that in that particular number, I've got 2 decimal places. 1, 2. Okay? 2 decimal places. I then look at that part of the sum, and I see that I've got 1 decimal place in that. Can you see where they've come from? Where have I got them decimal places from? So in that sum, I've got 2 decimal places there, and I've got 1 decimal place there. So I add those decimal places together. So in that sum itself, there are 3 decimal places. 1, 2, 3. And then what I do, I remove the decimal points. Okay? And now I do the sum. 0.03 is just 3. Times 1 is 11. So I do 3 times 11. Which gives me 33. So then what I do, I look back at the original sum and I noticed that there were 3 decimal places in that original sum. And what I did there, I took them out because I've took the decimal points out, haven't I? I've moved the decimal points. So what I've got to do now, I've got to put them back in. So at the end of 33 lives the decimal point. So now I'm going to put it back in 3 places. 1, 2, 3. 1 decimal place, 2 decimal place, 3 decimal place. So the answer, 0.3, 0.033. 3 decimal places in the original question, 1, 2, 3. 3 decimal places, 1, 2, 3, in the answer, and the multiplication's been done. That makes sense? No? Yeah? It's all about moving them decimal places. Yeah? We've took them out, we've done the sum, we've put them back in. Because they're a nuisance. They're a nuisance. So that's how you do it. If you see a question like that, that's what you need to think to yourself. How many decimal places are in the sum? Remember it, make a little note of it at the side. Then take the decimals out of the sum. Once the decimals have gone, you can do the sum. Yeah? And then remember, you've got to put the decimal places back into the sum at the end of the, at the end of it. That's basically how you work those out. Yeah? You still look a bit confused there,
I
Denise,
am
yeah?
confused because we've got a 1 there, so why have we got a 0?
Where's the 1?
We've got a 1.1, haven't we?
Yeah,
It's
but
times 1.1, so then the answer's 0.033. I don't understand if you times the...
so
That's
let me,
what I
let me let me whiz it back then. Let me just whiz all that off
Is
there.
that just me?
No, it's not just no. Some people don't get this. They don't.
No.
Let me see if I can explain it in another way. So, look at each sum first of all. Each number. Sorry, not each sum. Each number or part of the sum individually. So let's look at this part first. 0.03. That decimal point there is the nuisance. We need to move it because we can't do it. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do with it. Now remember, decimal points live on the right hand side of a number as you look at the number. 1, 2. I'm going to move it 2 places. It's now become a 3. Yeah, because the decimal point's now there. Yeah? So that's that part of the sum, that part of the number. I've changed it. I've changed it from that. In effect, I've times it by 100. The multiplication stays the same. That's still a decimal place. I still need to get rid of it. So I'm going to move that 1 place to the right. So now that's gone. It now lives there. So if that's gone from there to there, that now becomes 11. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a normal sum. We can do that. 3 times 11 is 33. Now the decimal point in 33 lives here. Whatever, it's kind of like a mantra in maths, whatever you've done to the one thing, you've got to then do the reverse. So in this one, I move the decimal point 1 place to the right. So now I've got to move it 1 place to the left. So now it's become 3.3. But then what I did, I moved this one 2 places to the right. So now what I've got to do, I've got to move it 2 places to the left. 1. 2. So 1, 2. So it's gone from there now. So it's now become 0.033. Or if you want to do, you can stick a 0 there. So the answer is 0.033. Yeah? So it's all about, if you move it, you've got to put it back. Yeah? If you take something out of it, you've then got to put it back in it. And you're moving it so you can make the sum easy for yourself.
Could you not still do it the other way without moving the decimal? Like if you would, like say the lattice method or something and line the points up. So then you're not removing it.
I've
and then
never tried it like that because I just think that's easier, to be perfectly honest. I don't know whether you would, to be honest. I don't know.
I just want to know whether it would work.
Yeah, well, you can try it.
I might be tempted to put the 0 decimal point after the 33.
What,
I think
when
that
you've
will
got
that might catch people out like if you
when you've got the answer, you would do, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But then don't forget you've got to move it back. Yeah. So all you've done, in effect, what you've done, you've took that. You thought, oh, this is a nuisance. I'm going to get rid of it. I'll just move it to there for now. That was a nuisance. I'll just move it to there for now. Then you do the sum, and you think, oh, can't leave them there. I've got to put them back. Yeah. And you've moved it you've moved 2 and 1, so you've got to put it back 2 and 1. So whatever you do to one side, you've got to do to the other. Yeah? They do take a bit of getting your head round. They do take a bit of getting your head round. So in an exam, a question that you might get, or something similar, would be something like this. 5.2 times 1.6. So what you do with that, you look at the question and you think to yourself, what's the difficulty about that? This. Those 2 things are the difficulty. So you've got to get rid of that. Get rid of the problem. So you move them out of the way. you've remembered that that was 1 decimal place, that was 1 decimal place, because that's where they were originally, remember? So there's 1 decimal place, there's 1 decimal place. You've took them out of the equation now. Now what have you got? You've just got a normal multiplication. You get yourself the lattice method done.
So it would work for that method then,
It
like
work,
that,
yeah.
because it's an equal decimal place.
Yep, and this is why we've learned how to do it. It doesn't matter if that's an extra big, it doesn't matter, I'll show you in a second. Here we go with our lattice. 2 1s are 2. 2 times 6 is 12. 5 1s, that's 5. 5 6s are 30. Let's add them. Start adding them up from here, remember. 2, 3, 8, and that's a 0. We had 2 decimal places in the original sum, remember, so we put 2 decimal places in the answer. 1, 2. So the answer is 8.32. Check it on a calculator if you don't believe me. Yeah. I'm only joking because somebody did that once and I'd got the wrong answer. And it's because I'd added up wrong. Yeah, so I shouldn't really say that. Somebody, oh, you got the wrong answer. No, I don't. Yeah. So yeah, so this is the thing with decimal places. They're a nuisance. They're stopping us from doing something quite straightforward. So we have to get it the way. Let me do the sum, yeah, I'll put you back. Yeah? So don't, and it's like Shelley said, what if it's a bigger number? What if it's a bigger number? Okay. What if you've got this? What if you've got that? Okay, 163.02 times 15.1. Again, you do exactly the same thing. You have a look. 1, 2, 3 decimal places in the whole of the sum. But then you just set it up. 163, take the decimal point out. There it is. You do the sum, and when you get your answer, you put 1, 2, 3 decimal places back into the answer. Yeah? And that's how you do it. So don't be frightened of these decimals. Look at and this is a lot of the things you've got to learn to do with the maths, especially as we get more and more into fractions and things like that. You've got to look at what you've got. And you've just got to take a second or a couple of seconds to think to yourself, right, what's there? What am I looking at? You look at the whole thing and it's like, oh, gee whiz. Yeah, but that's like me asking you to run a marathon. Yeah, knock on your front door tonight, come on, we're going to go and run 26 miles. What are you going to say? You're not going to say a lot. You're going to slam the door in my face. Yeah? But if I said to you, oh, let's just run to end of the street. Do that, wouldn't we? No, if we were practising for a we wouldn't. Yeah. We'd run to end of the street. We wouldn't run a marathon straight away. We'd run to end of the street. Ooh, that's not bad. A couple of days after, we'd run to McDonald's Red Corner. That kind of stuff. Yeah? And it's the same with this. We don't look at all that. We look at this. And we see that that's a nuisance. That's a nuisance. So let me get rid of that, let me get rid of that. But while I'm doing it, I notice that there's 2 decimal places there, there's 1 decimal place there. Once they've gone, that's just a normal sum that we've just learned to do. So we do it, then when we've got our answer, oh, don't forget, I took 3 decimal places out of that sum. I've got to put 3 decimal places back into the sum. And these are the sequences that we're going to learn. Things like this, yeah, things like this. Just makes sense. Practice.
That bit makes sense when it's the bigger numbers and stuff.
It's when it's got the zeros in, isn't it?
Because we've started, yeah. I'll shut up.
No, seriously. You've got to say it. You've got to say it.
No,
You-
because
I
I was
can't
just
get
looking.
my head around that way. You've got a 1.1, you times it, but you're ending up with a lower number. Your answer's lower than your actual. That's
see
what
you're
I
saying.
mean.
See what you're saying. Remember,
Stressing you down.
0.03
Yeah.
is not even 1.
It's not,
But
no.
it's tinier. So that you times it by 1, it's still going to stay small. It's never
Right.
going to get any bigger.
Right.
Yeah, it's never going to get any bigger. That's why it's as small as it is. Yeah, it's never going to get any bigger.
So when you say 0 times 9 is still 0,
Yeah,
is that the same thing?
same principle.
Right.
Yeah,
Penny's dropped now.
Same.
Thank you.
it's never going to
You
get
did
any
what
bigger.
you
That really
said.
baffled
There
me.
you go, you see. That's just showing you a
Right.
different way of doing it. Yeah. So have a go at a couple of them. I'll tell you what, let's just do, because they come up in sequence, let's just do the top 2. Just do ignore them. You can write those down and do them at your leisure, but just do the top 2. Just have a go at the top 2. So 3.4 times 6.7 and 12.8 times 4.2. If you get those 2, you'll be able to get the others, no problem. In fact, no, do 3, because that's 2 numbers on it. Do 1, 2 and 3. Yeah, do 1, 2 and 3. I'll just stop that for a second.